Remote event ideas for both client and prospect development. Gather assets and new clients remotely in group settings, leveraging your time and your energy without ever leaving your office, your home, or your cottage. Once again, you're here at the Rare Advisor, where we discuss a supercharged business model with recurring and repeatable events. My name is Mike Walters, CEO of USA Financial. I'm joined again today with Mark Mersman, the Chief Marketing Officer here at USA Financial. And I've invited Mark back again because we've talked so much about the opportunities that have been presented to us digitally through video conferencing and all the things that have changed in the year 2020, where the consumer, the recipient, the prospect, the client, however you want to think of that, they have upped their game in terms of being comfortable with things like Zoom and conference calls and having remote conversations and so on. And that opens up just a plethora of opportunity for the financial advisor. And in this session, what we'd like to talk about is taking it to the bigger stage. So we've talked about the fact that, what you see behind me, it's kind of my stage here today as I'm having this conversation with you, but there's a bigger stage to be had in dealing with groups of clients, groups of prospects, and being able to do it through this type of a venue. So Mark, with that being said, I'd love to know what some of your just initial thoughts are in terms of how things have changed and how advisors are able to start communicating in mass through the opportunities of literally sitting in their office or even their home, and yet having a meaningful introduction, relationship, and interaction with a larger group of people.
I think the coolest part about all of this is that so much can be accomplished, like you said, without ever actually leaving your desk, whether
Right.
it's you coordinating some of these things that we'll talk about, or somebody on your team that's coordinating them. E- Everybody, is becoming more and more comfortable doing things this way. What you used to need to maybe go to a restaurant or go to a facility to schedule things and meet with
Yeah.
somebody and all of that. Now, all of a sudden, everybody is having to convert their business model to become, Zoom ready, right?
Right.
You think about restaurants and, all these different businesses are trying to figure out how to get remote, how to be able to conduct business this way. And, as we alluded to before, I don't think it's going anywhere. So even when we do get back into normal, I think this is going to be something that businesses will continue to say, hey, actually that worked out pretty good. We'll just add our old normal onto this new normal and push forward.
Well,
So
the
I
advantage
think
that the advantage, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. The advantage that we have in our industry is we're intangible to begin with. So
right.
the financial advisory world is very much an intangible world. It's not like we're making cars and need a car lot to sell them off of, or we're a restaurant and we need to be able to, wait on them and serve food. The reality is, we've done most of our careers face to face simply because that's the way everybody was hardwired. But it's not because we had to, because again,
Right.
we don't have that physical product. It's about information and it's about trust and it's about guidance and all the other things that go along with financial advisory work. And those can be done the way we're having this conversation today. And so it really opens things up. And candidly, financial advisors have a bigger advantage than most businesses do.
Yeah, when you think about the most successful advisors, they're getting a large percentage of their clients from referrals and introductions. And they've done that because they've created an environment of trust. They've created an environment of community, which I think is a big deal. Like the advisors that get a lot of introductions and referrals are those that have invested the time, money, and energy into doing some different client events. And maybe they didn't always get a referral that quickly, but they kept investing in it. And it's the sort of thing that ends up paying off big in the long run. Well, what's really cool about setting up some of this virtual stuff or digital or remote stuff is you can really, you can pull off some things that maybe were I guess a roadblock in the face-to-face environment. For example, a lot of times if you only had 5 or 6 people come to an event,
Right.
you might hesitate for something like that. Likewise, if you had 80 people that registered or 150 people, boy, that worked against you. You can't accommodate all of that stuff in the remote world through Zoom and video conferencing. You can really get away with 4 people or 400 people, so long as you have the technology bandwidth to pull that off. And so there's a ton of ideas, whether it's client or prospective client, from an event perspective that you can do that realistically can go a long way to create experiences. If you think about it, this, the COVID-19, we know that one of the most impacted populations is, the senior population. So you look at 60, 65 plus, and those people by and large are staying at home. They're also people that really want to be a part of a community. They want, we all have this sense of belonging to a group and that sort of thing. But, that group in many ways has kind of been being forced to keep their distance. So let's think about different things that we can do to give them that community or that group setting. So one cool one is a virtual paint night. There's programs out there that will facilitate that. There's a website called Yaymaker. So it's YAYMAKER. This site, normally when it was really focused on local live events. So, hey, what's going on in my community? What's the live event that's happening downtown or what have you? Well, as a result of the pandemic, it's completely flip-flopped and everything is virtual. So you can go there and set up a virtual painting night or a remote painting night where somebody will, and they've got all these different things that you can paint, and they'll send you the set in advance so that you've got what you need equipment-wise, and a really slick thing that you could pull off for some of your existing clients or prospective clients.
And so this is not digital painting. This is they're actually sending you the materials, and it's going to be real live painting.
Correct. Yep. And they do a Zoom meeting where the artist is right there, kind of walking you through it. You can be a part of it and be a part of the conversation and that sort of thing. They've got all kinds of different things that you can paint. During the holidays, they've got Santa and different holiday theme type of stuff. And then otherwise, they've got, you name it. They've got a huge different array of things, but it's kind of a cool concept. It could be completely facilitated. Alternatively, you could maybe go to a local painter or what have you, and our local artist, and say, hey, would you facilitate something like this? And my guess is that person, especially if they're looking for profit, they would certainly facilitate. You might even be able to find a professor, an art professor or something that would facilitate something like that. So, but that website is really slick. It's not just painting. They've got all kinds of stuff. They've got virtual cooking classes, which might be another one that,
that's a big one.
Go to your local restaurant. A lot of our local restaurants are struggling, and said to the owner or the chef, hey, would you be willing to facilitate something like this for my clients and some of their prospective clients? They are going to jump all over it. And now you have a cool opportunity to create a unique experience. And again, if 4 people show up or 40, you can facilitate it all through, the Zoom. So that's a cool one. I know, Mike, we've done over the past year a book club, and we did that remote through this sort of a session. And honestly, this type of a format worked really well for a book club.
Yeah, it did.
And I think that you could easily do that. I think, if you've got some business owners, maybe you try to focus in on a certain type of book or topic. If you've got certain clients that, I'm sure you could come up with a million different ideas for a themed book and put together some small groups of some individuals that would want to participate in that. And it could be a good way to get introductions from your clients to their friends.
Well, if you've got business clientele, that is a gold mine, what you just mentioned. So, for example, I wrote a note not long ago to a lot of the affiliated advisors of USA Financial, kind of a year-end piece, and I spent a fair amount of time referring to the classic book, Who Moved My Cheese? And you probably are all familiar with that. If you're not, you should be. Just go Google it. But the whole concept of who moved my cheese, I mean, as a world, we are living through that right now. Everybody's cheese has been moved all at once. And so, yeah, you could run, if you have a bunch of business or entrepreneurial clientele, you could run a book club on who moved my cheese. And then that could advance into a conversation about different ways to think outside the box about your business. And basically some of the ideas that we're sharing here today being shared locally amongst different businesses, especially if they're non-competing businesses. Now they all start helping each other and you're creating this network. And I mean, there's just kind of an endless domino effect that you could trigger off by doing some of these things.
Yeah, and I think it could be a really slick opportunity for some networking, like you kind of alluded to. I mean, if you're trying to get connected with a couple of other business owners and you've got a few as your clients, find a way to have them invite somebody that might enjoy being a part of that. And I don't think that you need to make that a big commercial for what you do. I think you use it as that opportunity to connect with somebody, and you could facilitate a short, have everybody give a little introduction of who they are and what they do, and kind of go from there as a way of facilitating that. So,
and we're kind of jumping to some of the more creative things that you can do in terms of almost like client appreciation type events when we're having this discussion. But don't forget, if you're doing monthly or quarterly updates, or market updates, or probably political you need to be careful of, but let's call it tax updates and things of that sort. I mean, any of these conversations that maybe you normally have either had one-on-one in the past or have had with groups or lunch and learns and things of that sort, all of that you can be doing for your existing clientele in an environment like this that we've been talking about. But Mark, what I'd also like you to talk about before we run out of time today is there is also the opportunity to reach out to what I'll call prospects. So whether they're introductions, referrals, they've been somehow in your system, maybe you've been dripping on them, ways to get in front of what most of the world would assume or think of in terms of a prospect, but literally bringing new customers into your practice during the pandemic and through this kind of a video environment. A lot of advisors are having a tremendous amount of success with that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the biggest opportunity you have sits inside of your existing database. Over the years, you've likely acquired names and addresses and that sort of thing, and hopefully you've done so and gotten some email addresses as well. But I think that's going to be your biggest initial opportunity to put on some of these events. And you really want to keep them probably in the 20 to 30 minute range. That's about kind of the target that we're seeing if you're going to do some of these financial topics and you're going to introduce prospective clients to it. I think you want to really think through what your topic is going to be. Over the years, things that are at least linked to financial stuff, but not linked to the sales of financial stuff. So, for example, you look at topics like Social Security or Medicare. These are things that it impacts everybody. They've all got to make a decision at a certain point in their lives. It's obviously tied to what you do. It's tied to a dollar sign next to it, but it's not necessarily tied to a product, or at least when a prospective client sees that, it's a little bit less threatening there than it is, oh, come and hear my spiel on this type of a product or why you need this type of a solution. The closer you get to that stuff, the closer we'll see, the less success you're going to have in terms of reservations and attendance. We've seen obviously the database. We've seen success with advisors using LinkedIn in terms of trying to facilitate this, especially if your topic is maybe geared towards that age 40 to 60 group where they might still be working. there's some really neat things you can do inside of LinkedIn. If you end up purchasing one of the upgrades is Sales Navigator. And what you can do there, so let's just say, for example, you work with teachers, and maybe that's a market, or maybe you work with state employees, or you got a number of state employees that are, maybe you have a presentation centered around that. Sales Navigator will allow you to do a filter in your quick little area. And from there, you want to target a certain profession, or you want to target a certain employer. You can then zero in on that and then send them direct messages and invite them, to download a white paper. You can invite them to come to a webinar. And that's certainly something that we've seen having more success. A lot of people during this pandemic, either if they've been laid off, if there's been, a 401k that might have freed up, perhaps they're thinking about, I want to retire now a little bit sooner than I was thinking about before. There's certain segments of people that you can really zero in on and start to leverage as a result of LinkedIn. Facebook allows you to do some of that targeting as well. The biggest challenge with all of this stuff, whether you're doing a live event or you're doing an event that you're pre-recording and then promoting, the biggest challenge that you're going to have is getting those that register to actually show up. Okay. Because, oftentimes I'll sign up for a webinar really not with even the intention of watching it, but I know, well, they'll send me the replay and I'll watch it when I have a minute. So you want to be cognizant of that. And so there's some things that you can do in advance of it. Obviously, a phone call ahead of time, a text message ahead of time to remind them of the webinar that they registered for. Those are little things. I would also tell you that it is an absolute must that you have a follow-up procedure in place, right? Even if they, regardless of whether they attend that webinar or not, I will tell you that you're going to have most of your contact or opportunity is going to be facilitated by your follow-up process and not necessarily during that webinar itself.
And I'll toot your horn for you there, Mark, as well, because I know your team has done an amazing job putting together what we would call the remote fill the room process. So for those of you who know about the traditional fill the room process, how we put literally tens of thousands of prospective financial clientele into event rooms across the country under normal circumstances each year. Now you've brought that to a digital platform where the mechanical components of what you're talking about, bringing people to the webinar, running the webinar, having it do replays for you, being able to follow up with them, all of that has been assembled for you by Mark and his team. So I would encourage you, if that's of value to you, reach out to USA Financial. We're happy to help you in that arena. And as always, if this is good information that helps you run your practice, please be sure that you follow us. Please prefer that you subscribe, you like, and you comment. We love to hear your feedback, and it helps us make sure that we're bringing topics to you and content to you that helps you continue to grow your practice. So thanks again, Mark, for sharing all your time and energy and expertise. And we will be back again soon with the Rare Advisor. So thanks, everyone. Talk again.